All right. Tell me you're joking. We're back. Got another one. Coming in caliente.
I love it.
In honor of the Super Bowl, and why not? If everybody else is going to talk about them, I can throw it in here a little bit. Little Bad Bunny.
Yes.
U.S. citizen Bad Bunny, by the way. Have a little fun here today. You read your dashboard. You know I've got another gentleman joining me today to talk about his path, his moment of weakness at which he decided he wanted to run for office.
Yeah.
And all of the above.
Yeah.
I figured we're recording this on a Friday, actually the Friday before the Super Bowl. What is it? 60. Super Bowl 60. Few things going on in the world that I'm sure we're going to touch on, but most importantly, we're going to get to know Mr. Looney, his a little bit of the roots, the path, the why, the race, and what he's planning on doing. So, without further ado, coming in over the top of Bad Bunny here, Don Looney, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great.
You a Bad Bunny fan?
I'm not a Bad Bunny fan. I respect what he does. I love it. To me, he's like the evolution of reggaeton.
Yeah.
And that whole vibe from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't not hear him because he's like an international superstar, right?
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things. I mean, my wife and kids, we are a music house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we wake up and there's Alexa, play. You just let her eat, and she rotates through our little, the AI.
Yeah.
She's curated what we listen to, and it can be anything from a, Give Me Shelter, little Rolling Stones, to a Zach Bryan, to Eminem, to LL, to Miles. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But lately, I'm getting a lot of Bad Bunny in my feed.
Yeah.
And I blame my wife and kids. Looked it up. I guess he's up to, actually, it's right in front of my face, 88 million monthly listeners, which puts him in the top 10 on Spotify.
Nice.
And so, that just kind of, it's getting me thinking here. Let's, the alternative halftime show, MC, he's at 5.2 million.
Yeah.
So I have a degree in political science and economics, not a degree in mathematics, but I'm pretty sure 88 million is more than 5.2 million.
A little bit.
Yeah, pretty close.
Just a little bit.
Sounds like a business decision to me.
Right.
All right, now that we've solved the NFL's PR problem, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor and a privilege, and I mean that sincerely.
Well, we bumped into each other for the first time. It was back in January of 25.
Yes.
Spencer Toder and a group of other political candidates, activists, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Put together a little bit of a powwow. It was a post-mortem. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade.
Oh, absolutely.
Following the 2024 fall elections, coming in, trying to figure out, okay, let's break it down. And you and I met each other at that. And it was funny, you have a room full of people that do it for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have, I would say the room was cut into thirds, maybe, right? Those that did it for a living, those that spend a lot of time and probably should be paid to do it for a living. And then there was a group of us that were kind of like toe in the water, kind of fringe a little bit, that have our own lives, have our own day jobs, but, tend to be active.
Yeah.
And my takeaway from that thing was nobody really knew what happened.
Right.
Like the postmortem determined that we were still in denial.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to say we. I'm not a registered Democrat. I assume you are as a candidate.
Loud and proud.
So I was there more from the standpoint of this is broke.
Yeah.
And I think my take on you when you spoke and kind of when we met the first time was not only did you agree that, look, it's broke and what you did didn't work, but I'm also going to take the next step
Yeah.
and run.
Yes.
So let's start there.
Okay.
What possibly went through your mind to decide that you wanted to become a candidate?
Yeah.
And tell us what race you're running for.
So at that moment in 25, just for the spirit of full transparency, that was we're coming off of 2 failed school board runs out in Wentzville. Okay. I tell everyone that I was a victim of the culture wars right there in my community. I became the poster child and the face of DEI and the 1619 Project. And, where I live is probably one of the tips of a red spear that runs through the state of Missouri.
Yeah, right? So you're in Wentzville.
Yes.
You had ran
yes.
for school board.
Yes.
Did you, what? I always find school board races extremely interesting for political wonks like myself.
Okay.
Because it's like, where does red and blue ideology, historically, like, how does that even come into play? But in today's world, it definitively is in play.
Right.
So in Wentzville, as a registered Democrat, as a black man, living, like I said, west of the wrong river.
Right.
Or the right, I have friends out there, so I'm not going to disparage that. Why run? Why did you run?
Well, at that point in time, the decision to run came because, one, and probably what a lot of people feel, right, is that y'all are doing this wrong, right? Your approach is off. And I couldn't put my finger on what was off about the approach. One. Two, I'd spent a lot of time since those school board races trying to build coalitions, build community, right? Which is probably one of the reasons why, Spencer invited me to the room, because that's just a thing that I don't know where I got it from, but I bring people together, right? Sometimes when I don't even want to.
Sure.
And as you said, we didn't have an answer, right? And so when you get to that point, growing up, excuse me, especially in a place like St. Louis, activists and organizers are not strangers to protests, demonstrations. I mean, you can look through Missouri's history, right? It's not a oh my God, they're protesting in the street in Missouri. They're like, okay, what are they doing it for now?
Yeah.
Is this something that I can get behind? And after the music stops from those things, right, we make noise, we bring attention to an issue, but we didn't have, and we still don't have, legislators in office who are going to solve a problem instead of arguing over whether or not the problem is real.
Yeah, look, you just, for me, in I'm kind of jumping all over the board with this particular response, but what you just said, in so much that when you look at organizing and protesting and marching or however that manifests, like my opinion on that process from an ROI perspective.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not grade it as a failure over a long period of time?
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I'm not personally opposed to it. I'm not the kind of guy that marches, though, right? I tend to do my thing my way.
Yeah.
But I'm also one, like, if you are going to put in sweat equity, like, at some point, we need to measure the results.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so even if you look at historical protests that they talk about, or the ones they allow you to learn about in school, right? When they were protesting the Vietnam War, those conversations started moving just the nation's sentiment and activity towards pulling out of Vietnam.
Right.
Much to, the establishment's chagrin. Right.
Well, it's really kind of one of those things that if you do look at the history of protest in America, we like to believe that we are a protest nation, right?
Yeah.
All the way back to Boston Tea.
Right.
But here's the reality.
Yeah.
Right. We've had moments in our history in which there's been shifts in macro policy that is kind of doubled as the protest at the same time.
Right.
Oh my gosh, prohibition.
Yeah.
Clearly during the civil rights movement, but Vietnam in particular. Yeah. But fast forwarding, I would say starting with and post Rodney King, we've seen an explosion
Yes.
of organized protest.
Yes. Absolutely.
So let me ask you a question,
Mm-hmm.
because that was in 92.
Yeah.
90. So here we are. Oh my God, I'm bad math here. 34 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grade the effectiveness of American protests since Rodney King.
I would give it a C minus. A C minus. Because again, as I stated, if you go before, in my mind, the Vietnam protests were kind of where that shifted,
Mm-hmm.
right? Demonstrations and protests led to action by the government, right?
Yeah.
If you start with the Rodney King protest and move forward from there, there really hasn't been a whole lot of governmental action that affected policy. There hasn't been a lot of social action that affected the entire zeitgeist, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I've talked to a handful of Republican associates. We've had this debate,
Mm-hmm.
me and them. And one of them at one point, and I'm not going to name names, made a really simple, obvious kind of statement about the right's view of protests,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera. And he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, if you look at the volume increase
Mm-hmm.
in marching, in protest, in blocking highways, or however you want to describe it, and he was obviously disparaging of the process.
Yeah.
He goes, we've done the math, JB. The numbers don't move. The voter turnout is virtually the same.
That part.
The conversion is basically the same.
That part.
And so they're like, he basically said, march away, because it solidifies the people that don't understand it and are anti-protest.
Absolutely.
So would you agree with that?
No, I would absolutely agree with that, because, and then the challenge with that is, if you're familiar with things in the entertainment industry, right? You don't have a big moment like that and let it go to waste, right? You try to build off that momentum,
Right.
and, you move forward with something else. And that's the thing that we've been missing. It's very hard to convince the activist or the organizer to become the politician. Right, we don't have a whole lot of John Lewis's out here, right?
Would you agree that in 2026, the one I would say Minnesota in particular, Minneapolis,
Mm-hmm.
and what's occurring there, and the voluminous amounts of cell phone videos and social media posts and pictures and
Mm-hmm.
primarily the videos and clips, et cetera, that are catching all of these actions in real time. I do think that there's a certain amount of effectiveness from the protests.
Yes.
Not from the protest itself, but from the sheer volume of people there able to catch what's going on.
Yeah.
So is that a placebo?
No, I don't think it's a placebo, but I think that for some folks, the gratification comes in saying that I stood up and I did something. When I was growing up, a lot of my friends would try to excuse some of their biases and things of that nature by saying, "Well, my grandfather marched with Dr. King." Okay.
I love when they say, "Well, Lincoln was a Republican."
Yeah. So it's like, and then what? Right? Like what happened after that?
Yeah, I heard Charles Manson read the Bible in prison.
Absolutely. So what was next? And so bringing it back to your original question, really what made me shift from the guy who was paying attention to anything that had to do with politics and the government and what was going on locally and nationally, right? Mm-hmm. Sharing that information with people around me and things of that nature, to saying, you know what, I need to be a candidate, is that all that information and all that attention I paid was great, right? And then I went out and marched and did all these things. Great. So what do we do now? Right?
Yeah.
Do I go and organize another protest? Do I look for another protest to join? Because in the beginning, I was just the guy that folks would call, "Hey, we're all doing this over here. I'll be there." But at some point in time, like, we have to get into the halls of legislature, the halls of power,
Bingo,
and kind of push these changes forward. And so I looked around, especially in Wentzville, the westernmost part of St. Charles County, right? Who was stepping up? You look up and down the ballot, and there were no Democrats on the ballot. Okay, and not only that, but there were very few. I think there might have been one black person running for alderman, right? And I guess I'm up because nobody's doing anything.
So You grew up in St. Louis, correct?
Sort of. That's the interesting part of the whole story. So I was born in St. Louis.
Okay.
At my parents split somewhere between 2 and 3 years old. By the time I was school age, I was shipped to Nebraska to live with my mother because they didn't want me going to school at then was a deteriorating St. Louis public school system.
Sure.
Right. So I would go there for school. I'd be back here in the summer. So when folks ask where I grew up, you know, I can point to a lot of different neighborhoods as to where I grew up because they're all home to me. You know, I got roots in all of them. But
so you're a Cornhusker that loves Provel?
we can't talk about Cornhuskers anymore. Not like we used to.
Not in the same.
Yeah, it's not the brag or not the flex, as the kids would say. That's not the flex it used to be.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was ever a flex. So okay, so you got mixed roots here.
Yeah.
You from a career standpoint, I know that you're in the UAW, correct? Yeah. How long have you been in?
I've been doing that for about 12 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that maybe, you know, joining that particular union or just union in general, was that something that maybe accelerated your interest in?
Well, no, the interest was there, but being the guy who, you know, I jumped. First of all, I love being in a union because I wasn't ever the best employee, right? And not that I didn't do a good job when I was at work, but going to work was always inconvenient for me.
Yeah, that thing called sweat equity for money.
Right.
I like the money part.
Absolutely. And so, you know, I had a couple of small businesses that I tried to start. You know, my wife is a hairstylist, and she did that for over 20 years, you know. And so, you know, I would assist her with that and then go out and be the breadwinner I was. And so, you know, my money was the serious money and her money was the play money. But anyway, that being said, once I joined the UAW and I realized how involved in politics they were, then I did a little history and research. And I said, oh, no. These folks are really involved.
Yeah.
I could do something with this. Because before that, whether I was in St. Louis or whether I was in Omaha, or whether I was in Wentzville, you know, you try to go knock on your alderman's door. You try to go into the office and get an appointment because you want to talk about an issue. I remember I wanted to know about economic development in Wentzville because it was growing. I saw all these corporations and all these franchises coming in, and I'm like, hey, where are the small business owners going to go?
Yeah.
You know, couldn't get a conversation. You know, nobody would take the time to talk to me. But once I joined the UAW and I'm coming out in my work shirt, right? Like, I just got off work. I got to run over here before they close. So I'm coming out in my work uniform.
Yeah.
Oh, now you want to talk to me. Wait a minute. I'm covered in grease. I got on a hoodie with this union logo on it. And now we can have a conversation.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, when you do think about, you know, we were kind of referencing it earlier, the masses in protest and, you know, and the lack of kind of transactional results from a lot of that, you know, and it's not to say that it doesn't happen. It does happen, but we're all going to be honest with ourselves if we're listening. So if you want to start to DM me and be like, this bullshit, you're lying to yourself. That's fine. But unions are a perfect example of really understanding how to manage the protest process.
Yeah.
They did it in two ways. Number one, when they did march or they did block or they did walk out, that was an immediate economic impact to those that they were wanting something in return from.
Absolutely.
So there was a clear-cut quid pro quo, right? But then, and I think this is the more important and more valuable and more powerful part of the, quote, protests that unions have exhibited over time, they voted as a block.
Yes.
So that when they asked for things, there was mobility, not in, a couple percentage points here and there. We're talking massive blocks of employees in critical areas.
Absolutely.
Where do you think, or what do you think today's organizers could learn from the history of unions and how they operated to maybe get more value out of today's protest market?
Well, I'm going to say this, and I mean it in the best way possible, but I think they really need to understand the history of labor unions, why they exist, get above the propaganda, right? Because, you know, they're saying, I've seen reports that Gen Z is the most pro-union generation, right? So if we look at the millennials and we go back to Gen X, it's kind of where you see union participation, union membership, and all of those things kind of tail off because folks didn't see the value in it. It's almost like, you got a new toy for Christmas, and by Easter, you're like, okay, what else is there?
Well, let me jump in on that. As a definitive Gen Xer who grew up in a steel town. I'm from Granite City.
Yeah.
Right? Where the vast majority of households were union or union affiliated.
Yeah.
I can tell you why Gen X started to fall out, because at that particular time in American history, specifically in the early 90s in particular, moving through, it's NAFTA. You have NAFTA, you have an explosion of access to college, higher degrees, mobility, technology.
Yeah.
Everything was shifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really the start of it. And then you just pointed out something that I read the other day too, and I agree. And I don't remember where I read the article, but it was this newfound love affair for unions from Gen Z and younger. The author said, it's really kind of simple. They've done a little bit of homework on history, and they understand that if you want to make more money and have more benefits, unions historically did that.
Yes.
And this is a generation that is having a hell of a time.
Yes.
Pay for the American lifestyle.
Yes.
So how do you connect that though? Because here's my question. Okay, I just talked about my own experiences when I knew unions fell out of favor.
Yeah.
Now they're coming back into favor, but in the middle of all that, unions started fracturing and shifting right in the voting booth.
Yes.
Talk about that. What does that mean to you, and why do you think that transpired?
So it's me and you, JB. So I'm gonna speak more freely than I normally do.
And our 7 listeners.
Yes.
There's now there's 6 because somebody was offended.
If I'm being honest with you, I think that was a natural progression from the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. Around those times when they had this period that they called desegregation, you started seeing a divestiture from public interest. Okay, and when I say public interest, I mean there are no more city hospitals, there are no more county hospitals, right? There are no more public pools, right? So once the gate was opened, right, and you let the others, proverbially speaking, in society partake in everything, there was a divestiture from everybody. Okay.
Well, let me add to that real quick, because in 1973, up until that point, health insurance companies were mandated to be non-for-profits, nonprofits.
Yes.
Congress, in its infinite wisdom, said, "Why? Let's let them do their thing." Right, which was on the coattails of what you're describing.
And so that's what I'm saying. We can add that to the list. So when I say public interest or public good, right? Insurance, these things were all good for the people of the public. But at that point in time, union members weren't as adversely affected as those non-union workers.
Correct.
Until the Reagan era, when he came for the air traffic controllers.
Deregulation.
Absolutely. Right. And so it was just a slow progression. But now we're having a generation of kids who are graduating high school, trying to go to college, and realizing they'll never be able to afford to pay for it. So they're going to have to get a loan that they'll never be able to pay off, to live in a home that it's going to take 30 years for them to pay for.
Well, I love the whole home debate these days where, everybody thinks it's about interest rates. And I'm like, you do know how home purchasing works, right? If the median home is now in Wentzville, it's in excess of $400,000.
Oh, easy.
Okay. So what's 20% as a down payment on $400,000 house? And how many of these kids have $80K laying around?
Absolutely.
It's all delusional.
Absolutely.
And then I love people who are like, well, no, there's first time home buyer programs at 10% down. Okay, I'll bite. How many of them have $40K in cash?
Absolutely.
And are willing to pay the extra 1.5 because they're first time home buyer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there are so many factors in that. And again, I'm not an economist. I'm speaking to the life experience.
You just play one on social media?
I'm just speaking to the life experience.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like this is what these people are going through, right? And so, but for them, they remember, hey, Grandpa was a union man. And he told us that this, you know what I'm saying? Now, they may not be on the same page with their parents, but they remember that there was a time where all these things were affordable and now they're not.
Yeah, it's almost as if like the fundamental reality of kind of that core benefit, of the core value that was derived from unions, from, to a degree, company towns, and what the federal government was doing parallel to the growth and the success of the unions, specifically post-World War II.
Yeah.
When we look at the 50s and 60s, when everything was exploding, CEO to worker pay was about a 25-to-1 ratio. Today, it's 340-to-1.
Easy.
You had the highest percentage of union participation in the history of America was during those 2 decades.
Yeah.
And the third thing was the highest tax rate on the rich, because we have a progressive tax rate, was in excess of 90%.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. That was the fastest growth in middle class America, home ownership, college education. All these things happened during that time. And the kicker, we had millionaires that became tens of millionaires who became hundreds of millionaires in spite of paying at the top end over 90% in taxes.
Absolutely. And so that divestiture and corporate greed, really, right? Corporate greed and I hate saying, corrupt politicians and all of those things are so like...
That's like saying water is wet.
Right. They're so colloquial now, right?
Yeah.
So I don't like talking about those things. But corporations bought the country that they wanted to have, right? I always laugh and joke with my wife about how one day everything is going to be sponsored by somebody. Okay.
Wait, what was that? What's that commercial where the kids are graduating and it's Niebel Auto Body and they hand their
yes.
What did they call Carrie? No, Niebel Auto Body. We sold their naming rights.
Absolutely. Right. Like you laugh at some of these futuristic movies. I know everybody's favorite one is the one with what's his name? Idiocracy. Right.
Oh my God.
Right. Everybody talks about that being our future. But the one thing I always think that we miss in a lot of these movies when they talk about futuristic stuff was they're telling us like your doorknobs are going to be sponsored by a major corporation. You know what I mean? And we're headed that way now. And they've started calling these folks influencers, right? Because they just get on there. They don't get on social media and talk about what a great day they're having anymore. They're trying to sell you a product in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, the Idiocracy has become like the parallels to today, 20 plus years later from when it was
Absolutely.
It's insane. And then there's Wall-E, right?
Oh, man.
Which, hey, you want to be
scary.
Afraid of America today? Watch Wall-E.
That is scary.
I tell you what, here's what we're going to do because we need to take a quick break, reset. When we come back, we're going to talk about why school board, talk about kind of Wentzville politics in general, how that's going for you.
Okay.
A Husker, North Side, St. Louis, and black man living in Wentzville.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a novel in and of itself, man. Forget politics, just write a book. So, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, have some more fun, talk more of all this. And thanks for listening. Like, review, follow, share, send it to a friend. I've got low self-esteem. That helps me out on the weekends. We'll be right back. If you are looking for a new show that explores the hidden gems, cultures, and opportunities in St. Louis, go check out B-Side STL. Anthony Bartlett and myself sit down with some of the most innovative, inspirational, and cutting-edge people that live in St. Louis who are not from St. Louis. We get the real story of St. Louis through their eyes and experiences. B-Side STL, available on your favorite podcast platform. All right, just like that, quick post-production. As I mentioned, what I'd like to do is maybe go back a little bit because we're meandering here. That's fine. It's intended to be a pub side conversation.
Yeah.
I apologize for not having beers on the table. School board. You have options.
Yes.
Well, realistically, some limited options at Wentzville to run, but you chose school board. What did you think? What were you focused on? What was the goal? What were you looking to accomplish with that particular race?
So, on the tail end of the Ferguson uprising and all of that, right, and going into that, recognizing that there were no Democrats on the ballot in St. Charles County at all, and very few people of African American descent on the ballot at all. I said, well, it's my turn. I got to run for something. also at that time, Missouri has been hemorrhaging teachers for at least a decade.
Yeah.
Teachers just don't want to work in the school system no more. And not because they don't love helping kids, not because they don't love teaching, but they don't have the compensation or the resources to do their job effectively. And it's very frustrating. A lot of them will start little learning centers or, maybe start a tutoring program. That way they can get that connection and that, I don't even know how to phrase it, but they can have that dedicated time to make sure that a student grasps the concepts that they're trying to give them. So we're losing teachers left and right. I had some of them working at the plant with me, and I'm like, you got a master's degree in education, and it is more beneficial for you to be here humping on the production line with me. We've got a problem. So then before that, I worked in a couple restaurants as a kitchen manager, general manager, whatever. And you have these college kids who are all excited, and they want to go to school, and they're all saying, yeah, I want to teach in Wentzville, or I want to teach in Rockwood, because those are great districts, But Wentzville was losing teachers too. And I'm like, wait a minute, just a few years ago, all these kids were excited. Like Wentzville was at the top of their list for where they wanted to work once they got an education.
Yep.
And those same kids are no longer teaching now, And it's like, man, this kid was bright-eyed and starry-eyed. So I said, hey, if we're going to do this politics thing, let's go into public education.
So let me ask you, because I come from a community in which there's a lot of teachers that are kind of in my first ring of associates. And when I talk to them, many of them have moved up into the administration roles now, thanks to we're older. And when I talk to them, when I talk to the lifers, the teachers that are in the classroom, there's a number of things that they point to as kind of modern day issues within schools. And I'm hearing this everywhere. One of the biggest things they talk about is really the lack of discipline, the lack of support from school board, from administration when it comes to kids that are disrupting, that are, to the point of violent, et cetera, in which everybody's afraid of lawsuits.
Yeah.
And then that's 1A. 1B is kind of a social analysis of the lack of engagement, the lack of participation, the lack of a role in the child's education and homework from the parents.
Yeah.
When you hear that and you're running for, you have children, you've been in these school districts, you ran for school board. When you hear those two things, what's your position on how to address kind of an explosion of unruly children and ambivalent parents?
Well, as a parent myself, I will be the first to admit that raising 4 children with my wife is probably the most daunting task I ever taken on in my life.
Is daunting code for expensive as shit?
Well, expensive, stressful. I mean,
that was just me. I have 3.
Yeah, like just fill in the blank with whatever.
Right.
Preach you, and we would literally, we had a system or a plan for keeping track of, kids in their schoolwork, keeping track of, who has practice tonight, right? Who's doing this? Where are they at?
Takes work.
It took both of us, and, that's probably the most in sync in life, me and my wife ever been and probably ever will be, but it was for the kids.
Right.
So that being said, not every household takes that intentional approach that we took. Okay. And so even when our kids were making friends, right, if the parents weren't approaching, the children and what's going on with them and the things in a manner that was like or similar to what we were doing, maybe you can't hang out at his house this weekend. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know who's over there keeping track of everything. So, but it's not neglect on the parents' part is what I'm getting to. We just don't have time.
I agree. And I think that again, I'm a nerd. I read a bunch of small articles, and there was one that was talking about if you look at households as it pertains to working couples, and you apply to generational shifts.
Yeah.
When we were kids, I think the number was something like only around 25% of households had 2 income workers, right? Which meant typically the woman was at home, so before school, after school, homework, all that stuff was kind of there.
Yeah.
And then now you fast forward to today, the number is almost triple the amount of households that need 2 income households.
Absolutely.
And to your point, and we kind of touched on it earlier, when you have the expenses that we are seeing in everyday American households, you have to do it because the second you start to fall behind the 8 ball, that snowball is going down a steep hill.
Our conversations in our society used to be about if you could afford to start a family, right? Now those conversations in these generations that are coming behind ours are, can I even afford to get married?
How funny is it though when you talk to boomers in particular, when you go up the scale and they're talking about the lack of young people aren't getting married, well, it's family values. They're not getting married. They're not having kids, et cetera. No, they are super pragmatic.
Yeah.
Kids are more aware of the capitalist reality of
Absolutely.
America today.
Absolutely.
That's why they're not having kids.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with pronouns.
No, nothing at all. It's you mentioned pragmatic, in my favor, it just doesn't feel wise for them.
Correct.
Right? If I know that I'm doing what they call struggle meals every day, right? Do I really want to bring my kid into this? Because now I got to not just split that bag of ramen, right? But I may have to give them the whole bag of ramen because I'm going to make sure my child eats before so why would I subject myself to that type of suffering when everything is just so sky high and unaffordable?
So let's talk about schools. I want to dig into Missouri a little bit more because obviously you're running for office in Missouri coming up. You started with the 2 school board races, uphill battles. Obviously, we're not successful. In Missouri in particular, there's a lot of things going on. We already have close to 40% of our school districts are 4-day school weeks. Call a spade a spade. The reason is there's not enough money.
Yeah.
This is not like, well, we ran the numbers and we took some beta tests and, and the public says they really like it. No, you do not have enough money for 4 days a week.
Right.
Our teachers 49th in pay nationally. We also have new, school choice.
Yeah.
Is really a code word for we are just going to subsidize private schools more.
Yes.
All of these things are going on.
Yes.
And then you have kind of the what I call the social media issues, such as, trying to purge libraries and, we can't put a we all belong flag on the wall because, that's anti-Christian.
Yeah.
When you think of educational policy in Missouri, if you did have the keys to the car, if you were elected and you had power, what do you tackle first?
Oh, this is my favorite part, really.
Well, I'm glad.
Let me get into it. And follow me here. For me, it goes back to, again, I said the resources and compensation for teachers. Reason why, we're losing teachers, so naturally classroom sizes are going to increase, okay? Studies will show you that when classroom sizes go up, graduation rates go down. Graduation rates go down, crime in your community goes up, right? Crime goes up, there's your property value. Your property value sinks too low, now you have a bigger corporate divestiture, right? The corporations are leaving. The manufacturing plant is packing up because I can't even build the stuff that I want to build because when I bring my supplies in, people are starving.
Yep.
Right. And precious metals, they get you money. Right. And the guy at the foundry don't care where you got that bucket of copper from. You know what I'm saying? He's going to take it from that guy who's, you know what I mean? So
Southern Metal Processing, I used to go there all the time. I always wondered why all the staff there was literally blind. Like they walk around with canes.
Yeah.
And now I know because they didn't want to know.
They don't want to know. Oh, you got a flatbed full of copper. Bring that over here. You know what I'm saying? So, and these are real things that are happening. But what I'm saying, when you look at those numbers,
you might want to take that skew off there.
When you look at those numbers, right? For me, it all starts in making sure that teachers are able to manage a classroom.
Okay. I love that. I completely agree because I'm one of those that, when I think of issues, I do like to get in the weeds and think about root cause, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to where this all started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in Wentzville, in far west St. Charles County,
Yes.
a lot of the root cause realities, they don't care.
No.
That is not something anybody wants to talk about, and they want to stick with the kind of the moral arguments or the freedom or liberty arguments, which is all bullshit too.
Yes.
So how do you attempt to break through when you message, when you meet, when you walk the streets out there?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're walking up to households where you know there's probably about a 65, if not 75% or higher chance that is a conservative Republican voting household.
Yes.
What, knock, knock. What do you say?
I start with, we can do better for everybody. One of my taglines for this campaign is putting the solid back in solidarity, right? And what I mean by that is that, on the surface, we all think we're together, right? In our mind, we think we're all Americans, we're all one, everybody gets along. But really, rugged individualism has poisoned everything, right? So to answer your question very directly, hey, I'm a union guy, right? And I want to make everybody's lives better. I want the kids in the Valley, it's a neighborhood out in Wentzville, to enjoy all of these amenities in town here, enjoy life in the same way that the folks over in Bear Creek do.
Well, what's funny is like one of the biggest issues that the city of St. Louis and really kind of the central corridor here, St. Louis County, when you think in terms of the haves, i.e., south side of St. Louis through Clayton, Ladue, the Kirkwoods, the Websters of the world, etc. One of the biggest issues that's occurring here, statistically speaking, is population decline. Most importantly and most notably, you see college graduates, whether they're from here or not, but most of them that are from here are relocating elsewhere, right?
Yes.
We have a brain drain.
In droves.
We have incredible schools, private and public, here in our area.
Yes.
We have incredible institutions in WashU and SLU, that are kind of like incubators that bring people in from literally all over the world. But our region is an exporter of young talent. So when I think of St. Charles County and the kids that are growing up in the Valley in Wentzville, right, that are growing up in these houses that are blowing up in value, and these kids are going to private schools, and they're all farming out to Mizzou and KU and everything else. The people that are in charge there don't understand that those kids are also not coming back.
No, they don't.
So when you talk about stabilizing the community or helping them, or I want us to be more solid.
Yes.
From a solidarity standpoint, how do you sell them on starting with kids as opposed to ignoring all the pronoun battles?
Well, and so that's the challenge, right? So when we have these conversations and I start talking about things like affordability, living wages, affordable health care, or even universal health care, the conversation...
Oh, so you're a socialist.
Right,
yes, right?
Yes, the conversation shifts to the culture wars, right? Well, I don't want, nobody in there teaching my kids what rainbows are about and, things of that nature. What? Yeah. Like so you can hide a real life situation from your children. You would rather just the whole country go down the tubes, And again, they're stuck in that mind that they think that their money, right, or their access or proximity to power is going to save them. But I think that in recent months, I think they're figuring out that the super wealthy have no interest in making sure that you're okay anymore, right? They've lost interest. It doesn't bother them if health insurance goes up because they can write a check and pay for it.
Yeah, I literally saw a debate online the other day, going down a rabbit hole of somebody that was like, the post was basically saying, look, the issue is really the subsidization of billionaires. When you look at big oil or Tesla or whoever, it doesn't matter. The reality is so much of their accelerated growth, their accelerated wealth, their accumulation of wealth is a combination of two factors. Number one, government subsidies, et cetera, and the tax code.
Yeah.
And, and their point is like, oh, the tax code is Democrats and Republicans, which is 100% true. Like the blue team is as much to blame.
Oh, absolutely.
74,000 fucking pages of tax code. Are you kidding me? It should be like 50 max. And the debate that was occurring was that it was in the regarding how billionaires are able to use collateralized loans or equity loans, and basically that's how they pay themselves, and that means that they pay no taxes, et cetera. And everybody's like, well, that's just tax code. I can do that too. And I'm thinking to myself, you on the right are so brainwashed that you're defending individuals because that's tax code.
Yeah.
Just ask yourself, can you go to the bank and go to your mortgage lender and say, hey, you know what, I don't want to work anymore. Can you just set up a loan for me so that I can take, my 150, 200, 250 grand a year, whatever it is for my household. I want to take that off my equity and I don't want to work anymore. Right? The bank would laugh you out of the fucking room.
Yeah.
But those are the real life stories that
absolutely
are not connecting.
Absolutely.
So
I don't think that one of the things there, not to cut you off there, but I think that a lot of people get confused in this the capitalistic society that we live in. I think people are fooled about who the actual capitalists are.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that 85% of our population we are consumers. We are on the hamster wheel. Working for the weekend, right?
I blame KC95.
All of these things, right? Like we are working to live, right? And some of us are able to live a little more comfortable, so they think that they have an advantage. Now we talk about the tax code. One of the biggest grifts that 4547 pulled off was he said, yes, you're absolutely right. The tax code is broken, and I know because I benefit from him.
Yeah.
But what he never did was promise that he was going to fix it, and he never promised that he was going to make it inclusive. You know what I mean? So he kept doing the thing that he was doing. He said, hey, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's just like, you're at the lunch table when the kid comes up and grabs your milk, and you're like, hey, that's my milk. And he says, I know, and walks away. That didn't stop him from taking your milk. That he acknowledged that, yes, this is your milk, right? And that's kind of where we are. I don't think people realize who the capitalists are in our society. I think that they include themselves in there when no, most of you are consumers. You want the hottest electronics, you want all the fancy bags or the labels and things of that nature. Go ahead.
Well, and to your point, you talk about the consumerism. I'm going to go back to, I referenced it earlier, NAFTA, right?
Yeah.
We have this cyclical issue with certain macro policies that our government has enacted. NAFTA, for all intent and purposes, was an unmitigated disaster for labor in America.
Yes.
On the flip side, the other 90% plus of American citizens that are not laborers benefited from the consumerism values in trade and cheaper goods, right?
Absolutely.
So we have this economic reality of decisions that are made and who benefits, and at the end of the day it comes down to the dollar. But then we have this whole, since the birth of our nation, there's been this unspoken, undefinable social contract that is kind of expected to a degree, and that because that's what makes America great, rugged individualism. But part of that is also rugged individuals that create a community, a town, a borough, or whatever, and they have this social contract in which they take care of each other and they figure out a way to make it all work, and it's all independent, yet it's really a social solution.
Yes.
Right? So I want to talk about your district because I'm currently Trisha Burns, correct?
Yeah, she's the current state rep.
Republican state rep, and I did a while back, and I pulled it back up because I looked at it before our first scheduled appointment. I'm not going to talk about what happened. So much of the things that she co-signs on or puts out there are really they relate to taxation. And
there's a reason for that.
Yeah, it's because it's it's a cherry on top of a rotten sundae. Is what it is.
Yeah.
She wants to basically, the value appears to me without going to her page. I want you to have your money back. I mean, that's almost like the simplistic principle of what she runs on.
Yes.
However, for Wentzville to grow, how Wentzville has grown, and for it to sustain itself moving forward, the infrastructure, the expenses, the development, the first responders, the public employees, the ones that are going to scrape the streets, and all these new subdivisions, et cetera.
Yeah.
All those people don't work pro bono.
No.
So take a second and talk about your campaign and speak to a potential Wentzville resident as to how you want to approach kind of the economics of the district differently from Tricia, who is just like, I want to reduce taxes, but that's not really a plan. How would you approach that?
So here's the uniqueness of Wentzville. Okay. Right now we have one of the highest sales tax in the city of Wentzville, probably in the county. Okay. So that's where they're going to take your money back from you after they give it back to you
100%.
With the income tax, right? So I would talk about the taxes. Another thing is the business development. That's why I went there to find out what was going on, because a lot of the companies that were coming there, now we have some huge employers, right? MasterCard's right up the street. General Motors is there. BJC's got some facilities out there. Mercy's coming, right? So we have great employers. We're great. It looks great to big companies who want to move in and set up roots. And so that's where a lot of that growth has come from. Going back to taxes, is the thing with that is that these businesses are getting 20 and 30-year tax waivers to come to town.
Yeah.
And so they're not supporting or giving back to the community. And people were frustrated about their property taxes because that's what's keeping the local, the county, and even the state infrastructure up.
Correct.
It's personal property taxes. It's income taxes. And it's got to be so much bigger because the corporations aren't paying their fair share because you're giving them a 30-year pass just so they can come to town.
Well, again, I'm going to go back to root cause along the lines of what you're describing. The argument that they make is this literally flawed narrative of trickle-down economics. This is a Reaganism issue in so much that they think, well, you bring the businesses in, who's going to hire all these people, and the money's going to flow down. Well, it doesn't really work that way because that doesn't guarantee that the people that they are going to employ are, number one, from your city. Number two, 100% of these employees are going to be driving on your streets. 100% of them are going to potentially have a medical issue or a wreck or whatever. And you cannot sales tax your way out of this.
No.
And so I was just quickly looking at, I think, just a cursory review. The average sales tax in St. Charles County is right around 1.7%. Wentzville's at 2.5%.
Yeah.
So you're talking literally about a 40 to 50% higher sales tax rate than the surrounding communities, number one. Number two, if the MOLEG gets its way and they do start to phase out the state income tax, the only way that you can make up for that will be through use taxes, i.e. sales taxes as well. So they're projecting that number could go well in excess of 3, 4, 5%. So
easy.
How do you message that? How do you break through?
So that's the thing that we're working on, right? Because folks will say they hate taxes, but then when you talk about sales taxes, right, they spent so much time and invested so much in the propaganda of the message for it, right, that I'm just not smart enough to have the answer for the message against today. I'll just be honest with you, right? But I do share with folks like this is where they're making up for it. You know what I mean? Like, you're paying taxes, but Walmart is not paying taxes. And folks will say, well, Walmart shouldn't have to pay taxes because they're an employer and they're employing 100 people in this town. And it's like, yes, but none of those people can afford to live in this town.
Yeah, none of them have a living wage.
Absolutely. And so they go back to whatever community that they can afford to live in because they can't afford an apartment in Wentzville. Because what used to be, $400 for a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, in the 90s when I moved out there is now $2,500.
It is a viciously uneducated, and I don't mean this in a derogatory manner towards anybody in particular, but it is an uneducated hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Because people don't understand kind of those effects. Kirkwood went through this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still going through this because it has this it has an elevated population from a status standpoint. You've got $1 million homes, you've got districts, you have all that. But then you also have a massive revenue generator in Lindbergh Boulevard with all the big boxes.
Absolutely.
So you have the people that live in these little quaint communities in these $750,000 to $1 million homes that are like, we don't need more of that. But I also don't want my property taxes to go up. Well, okay, fine. We'll keep your property taxes here, but we're going to subsidize that by bringing in the big boxes you don't like.
Yes.
Wentzville is on, used it, and I'll say it, the tip of the arrow of this issue. And they're leading with lowbrow consumerism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the challenge there, right? And so we do have, listen, if you have a good, solid union job, right, and your partner has, a decent job that they got after a college degree or whatever, okay, and you're making what would be considered a decent middle-class income at one point in time.
Yeah, on paper.
Combining both of those together and moving to Wentzville, you can have a really good life, even with the average home cost being $400,000. And it's a very convenient life because just one circle around the Parkway to Pierce Boulevard, everything you need is there. Your dentist, your doctor, the cleaners, your favorite fast food place. You know what I'm saying? It's all right there in town. So we become
all the fast food.
Yes. We become so isolated and insulated that everything that's happening outside of there becomes mythological almost. You know what I mean? Life is good. You know what I'm saying? But how I ended up in Wentzville was moving. I grew up, primarily North City. When I got of age, I moved to South City because I didn't have to drive 30 minutes to the grocery store, right?
Right.
It was just a 15-minute drive. The hospital wasn't 45 minutes away. You know what I mean? Like it was, life there became more convenient. But towards the late 90s, that started to change, all right? And then I met a girl. We fell in love.
God, it's always them.
And she lived in Wentzville, right? And so that's where I ended up. But from the time that we were there, and it was worse there because Wentzville was primarily rural. This is like 98, 99, I'm talking.
Yeah.
So all the growth that we're talking about and the beautiful town that you see, I was telling somebody that it's easy to get fooled if you're going east on 70. When you arrive at Wentzville, for a moment, you'll think, oh, we're here. We're in St. Louis. Until you see the sign that says, no, you still got 35 miles to go.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Because out of nowhere, it just looks like a normal suburb, right? And it looks that way from Wentzville all the way down 70.
Yeah, it exploded. It's a logistical reality. It exploded because it is literally the crosshair of 40, 70, and 61.
Absolutely.
Right. And,
absolutely.
Call a spade a spade. That's why it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the perfect pot to do what they've done there, right? Yeah. So the message that I carry to the door is that we've got to reel this in or we're going to lose it. Yeah. Right? We have good life. We live great. Some of us are, there are different levels of comfort, right? Depending on what your ambitions are and what type of luxuries you like.
Right.
But you see all of that in the community in Wentzville. It's almost like a snapshot of America, okay? You can see some of the richest rich, some of the poorest poor, some of the hardest workers, some of the smartest thinkers. Very diverse community once you look underneath.
Part burb, part frontier, part urban.
Yeah. All of that.
Well, I wish you best of luck, man.
I'm going to need it.
I know that.
I'm going to need it.
I know that. Keep me posted. I will keep us posted on the race. You're welcome back anytime. Give us updates. Maybe what we do is bring in a little round table. Let's talk about rural politics for black men that are Democrats west of the Missouri River. I mean, that's if PBS doesn't pick that shit up. I don't know.
Oh man, I'm telling you, it makes for a good story. And it's better if you live it. I'll put it that way.
Well, you are definitely living it, man. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. I'll put a link to your campaign site and everything in the show notes, and you're welcome back anytime. And thanks for joining me, man.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks for listening. Tell me you're joking. We are out of here, pun intended. Like, review, follow, share. Till next time, I'm out.